The Black Ambassador in Thudurum is way more than what you think. The film introduces the close attachment of the protagonist Shanmugam with his car. We get a glimpse of how the car came into his life. It was something that got introduced to his life because of a mentor, an action director who taught him everything while working for films. And then of course we notice how the photos keep revealing the progression of time during the opening credits. Things change, but the Black Ambassador and its presence remain the same. A very small detail that establishes how timeless the car is the way it appears at this moment when it is overlooking the family, but it also continues to be a part of the family in the photo frame. Then the film begins and takes its own sweet time to reinforce the strong emotional attachment of the car with our protagonist, who is also lovingly referred to as Benz. A nickname that conveys how much he loves the car and how attached he is with an object. Now, when it comes to attachment, we slowly realize how Benz might be treating his car as a transitional object, which is a term coined by psychologist Donald Winnicott. A transition object is the first not me possession that helps a child navigate the emotional transition from total dependence to relative independence. And to simplify this, it's a special item, often a blanket, soft toy, or a piece of cloth that a young child becomes attached to during early development. This object helps the child to cope with emotional challenge of separating from their primary caregiver, who is usually a mother. Now, yes, we don't really know about the childhood of Shanmugam, aka Benz, but he's definitely someone who is very attached to his car, which feels like a transitional object in his life. And it is not just the car gifted by his mentor, it is an object with which he is associating his identity. The car has stayed with him since the time he was part of the film industry. The car has witnessed every fragment of his life, and we slowly realize that the car is something that defines the identity of Shanmugam. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is the reason why the film takes close to half an hour to set up the significance of the car and the character of Benz as a reformer. He is a good Samaritan, he is someone who helps the community by driving people around, and everyone loves him for that. However, we also realize in the beginning that he sometimes treats his car like a baby and keeps everyone off the steering wheel. Actually, every time he treats his car like a baby and keeps everyone off the steering wheel, which is something that even his kids know of. He never lets anybody drive the car and clearly gets bothered even when someone tries to touch it. Now, as an audience, we do start to feel that Benz is doing a little too much. His attachment to his car feels more like possessiveness. But Benz is not aware of this. He fully believes in the way of thinking about the car, and that is what happens in every story. The protagonist initially believes in a lie in his world, and by the end of the story he finds the truth about himself and the life that he's leading, which leads to a transformation, a change. And in order to discover the truth and get rid of the lie, all our character needs is a little push, a turning point, an inciting incident. In Thudurum, the inciting incident is when Pavi along with his friends take the car for a spin. Shanmugam gets fierce, thinking that someone stole his car, and chases them. After successfully being able to stop the car, we witness the occurrence of the first turning point and crack in the protagonist's identity. This is the first time when his attachment to the object metamorphoses into the first act of physical aggression towards his child. This also makes it the first time when his possession reveals itself as an obsession. This event marks the first shred of his identity and begins the symbolism of the Black Ambassador as guilt experienced in different stages by the protagonist throughout the film. After Benz slaps Avi, he immediately experiences reactive guilt, which is conceived as a response to one's own unacceptable impulses. Yes, he is going to get the car repaired, but he also realizes the need to repair the relationship with his son after his impulsive actions arise from his possessiveness for the car. Avi stops responding to his messages, he ignores them, and just when Benz was hopeful of receiving a call back from his son, he rather receives a saddening news which will now bring in a different stage of guilt, and it is very much connected with the car, the demise of his mentor, Palani Master. The person whose eternal presence and significance in Shanmugam's life was symbolized by the car has now left this world, and since our protagonist could not meet him in what might turn out to be his final days, he experiences, in my opinion, survivor's guilt, which is something that you feel after a traumatic event. Now, before we witness the next stage of guilt arriving in Shanmugham's life, we notice the possessiveness of the car kickstart again during this plot point when he is involved in a police case. This event will help the narrative move forward in two ways. First is by giving us a fragment of parental guilt that he experiences at this moment when he is asking about whether his son called or not. And second, by introducing the next stage of guilt, which is closely associated with the car. After being restless, Shanmugam is finally able to release the car from police custody, but the police ask for a favor in return, and initially it seems like a regular request to, drive someone from one place to another, but as the requests start getting more bizarre and uncomfortable to handle, Benz starts experiencing anticipatory guilt on multiple occasions. Since the car is part of his own identity, Benz has guilt feelings aroused by the perceived violation of his own standards of conduct. And as the plot thickens, the police officers reveal their nefarious plan because of which they were driving Benz crazy for so long. The revelation further escalates the guilt and shakes up the moral compass of our protagonist. He is not a good Samaritan anymore, he is not innocent anymore, and he feels like becoming a perpetrator, an undesirable sinner who drifted from the path of righteousness and was driven towards the path of, violation of his own morality. The depiction of the same gets reinforced when he is compelled to let go of the steering wheel and forced to take a back seat to witness an act of malice that was kept locked behind his forced ignorance. After this, he reaches home, covered in guilt. The dirt on the car resembles the stains on his consciousness. He tries to wash it off and slowly comes back to normalcy. But just when he thought of getting rid of one of his guilts, the parental guilt returns with greater impact. The moment he finds that the wallet of the deceased locked inside his car was none other than Pavi himself, Shanmugam gets devastated. The same car that represented his integrity, his vehicle of confidence, and a symbol of his identity has now transported him into a state of agony. His prized possession and most beloved attachment has now become a scathing reminder of his guilt. And then we know what happens. He seeks redemption and punishes those who brought, his life and his son's life to shambles. And yes, he does, tries to wash off his guilt, which he is not able to, despite sitting in the rain after the big reveal in this scene. But at the end, the Black Ambassador that has journeyed through the story so far, driving his character arc, becomes a symbol of his redemption as well. However, it comes at the cost of experiencing, again, in my opinion, survivor's guilt, which is something that I believe Oskar Schindler also experienced in the end of Schindler's List. Despite saving so many lives, Oskar still felt that he could have saved many more. And in the case of Tudrum, the act of leaving the bodies of the police officers inside along with his car in the jungle makes us realize how Benz tried to make up for his mistakes and, most importantly, move towards accepting that he is no more the way he always thought of it.